Hello, hello. Thank you for tuning into my channel. My name is Yvette Andino. I am an artist in North Carolina, and I wanted to make this video to introduce myself and to talk about my own art journey and how I became an artist. I also want to talk a little bit about the mistakes that I've made along the way and what advice I would have for someone who is perhaps pursuing an art career, whether you're just starting out or maybe you are a middle-aged person or even an older person. Maybe you're retired and now you have time for the arts. I would like to talk to you also. So the way that I became an artist. Like most artists, I was always interested in the arts from a very young child. And like most children who, love drawing and coloring and all of those things, I too enjoyed all of that. But as I got older, I was really good at drawing all my life. And as I got older, I really started to think deeply about making art my career. Uh, However, I grew up in the 70s and 80s during a time period where there was no social media, there were no platforms like what you see today. And also, I grew up in a single family household. So my parents divorced when I was very young, and my father left us, and my mother was left with 5 children by herself. So struggling to make ends meet. How could I now ask my mother to pay for art school? It was just out of the question. So, of course, I grew up and I got married. I had a family, but the idea of becoming an artist just never left my mind. So, now as a stay-at-home mom, and my then husband was the only provider. And again, life was challenging. We were just trying to make ends meet. I couldn't expect him to, on top of, paying all the bills by himself, supporting a family of 4, to now also pay for art supplies. So I decided to get creative, and I sold jewelry, I sold Avon, I cleaned houses, offices, whatever I could get my hands on to just make a little bit of money. I I took whatever opportunities I could find. I saved my money and I started to buy art supplies and to practice. So this was during the Bob Ross era where Bob Ross was on TV. I didn't miss a day where I looked at the Bob Ross channel. And, landscapes was not my thing, but I figured that any type of advice or training that I could get, it was free, so I was going to do it. And, I started just with the idea that I really wanted to learn how to paint. And, I heard all kinds of stupid remarks from people. Oh, what are you wasting your time for? You don't have time for that. You got a family. And of course, when you have young children, it's very difficult for you to carve out time to paint. That's considered to be an unnecessary task. So I waited for my children to be napping or sleeping many times at night. I would put them to bed 9 o'clock at night. Many times, there were so many nights where I stayed up till, 1, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning just practicing. And here and there, I would take an adult class, a community class, where I could get together with other artists and maybe learn a little bit from them. Or, the instructor never really had any real teaching to teach you. It was more like a social gathering type thing. So little opportunities like that that I could find to improve my skills and to motivate me to keep going was what I did. Well, as time went by and my skills started to improve. I started to hang my pieces on my own wall. I was not trying to sell my art. I wasn't promoting my work. I wasn't even telling people that I was an artist because I didn't really consider myself an artist. Even though I was painting and I was making these painting pieces, I didn't consider them to be anything professional. I didn't even think that anybody would like them, or and much less purchase them. So of course, I enjoyed them. So I figured it was a way for me to decorate my walls cheaply. And but as people started to visit my home, family, friends, neighbors, they would see the art pieces on the wall, and people started asking, like, where did you get this artwork? Who made this for you? And that was my opportunity to start letting people know, oh, I created these pieces. And it wasn't long before people started asking me if they were for sale. And at first I thought for sale, like I wasn't even thinking about selling anything, but this was my chance to start selling my pieces. And of course, I didn't know the value of my own work, so at the time, I sold them pretty cheaply, but I got some money, what I thought was good money at the time. And then came people asking for commissions. So, at first I was kind of scared because I thought commissions, this means that I really got to do a perfect job. But it's funny, nobody really expected perfection. I expected perfection. I started painting people's pets, just, silly things like a fruit basket. Somebody asked me to do a fruit basket for them for their kitchen. I even got a request from a man who was completely obsessed with Cindy Crawford, and he wanted a portrait painting of Cindy Crawford. And to my surprise, I delivered. And that was one of my biggest commission pieces at the time, where I made really good money. And so, that got me realizing that people like my artwork. But even at this point in my life, which by then I had been probably painting about 10 years, even at this point, I didn't really think that I could really promote my artwork and that I could sell it. It wasn't until I eventually moved to North Carolina. My children were now grown, and I was still painting. All throughout the years, I was always painting. I never took a break from painting, but it wasn't like I was doing it as a full-time job. I had other jobs, office jobs. I was once a mortgage broker, but I was never really happy in these jobs. So eventually, when I moved to North Carolina, I had quit all these jobs, and I thought, I'm just going to focus on my artwork and see where I can go with this. So my son, my older son, was the one who suggested, Mom, there's so many platforms. How come you don't open up a platform and start promoting your artwork? So, at first I was fearful. I thought, nobody's going to really want to buy my artwork. There's so much artwork out there that's so much better than mine. But then, he said to me, if you open up a door, other doors will open. Other opportunities will become available. You just got to put yourself out there. So I'm so glad that I listened. I started to open up different platforms, eBay, Facebook, Pinterest, Instagram, Etsy, and to my surprise, I started selling more and more pieces. So eventually, I visited art festivals, and I showed off my art to some of the artists there, and people were asking me, girl, what are you doing? How come you're not doing shows? So I started, participating in some art festivals, and to my shocker, I was selling more and more pieces. So, it took me time to really believe in my artwork. I took some bad advice along the way. People were telling me, well, If you really want to sell your pieces, you got to start selling things that people love, like abstracts and landscapes and things of that nature. So I delve into stuff like that. I didn't enjoy it. It wasn't what my heart was into. So even though I did learn how to make these abstract paintings and I sold pretty well, it wasn't what I really loved. So eventually I came back to painting women. I developed other skills. I learned how to make, multimedia abstract collage, which is what these pieces are. And I really love this style. So what is my advice to you? If you are wanting to pursue an art career, there is no better time in human history to become an artist than right now. Why? Because social media, you have YouTube, you have all these different platforms. Now you have AI to really help you to level up your skills. There's so many channels available, free information. So really leveling up your drawing skills, learning about composition, learning about color theory, learning about complementary colors, about value, all of these things are going to help you tremendously. So, if you have the excuse, well, I love art, but I'm not talented, I don't have the skills. Nobody is born with these talents or these skills. These are things that you have to learn. So just like you learned how to read and write and learn the language, those are skills that you learned. Art is also a skill that you can learn. Anybody can learn it. All it takes is motivation, dedication, and discipline. You got to stick to it. You're going to make a lot of bad art before you make good art. You have to be willing to accept rejection. You have to be willing to accept failures. But you got to push through all of that. It's like a person on a diet that's trying to lose a ton of weight. You can't expect to drop 100 pounds overnight or in a weekend. It only takes with hard work and dedication. So my advice to you is practice, practice, practice. Practice on a daily basis. Start off with drawing. If you don't have the means, you don't have the money to buy art supplies, start off small. 3 colors, 3 basic colors, blue, yellow, and red are the 3 principal basic colors, and black and white. You can make any color from these 5 colors. Look up how to make a color wheel. You will learn. You can buy a paint pad, okay? A multimedia paint pad, and you can practice painting on a paint pad. It's pretty cheap. For under $30, you can buy everything that you need to start. You can buy a paint pad, you can buy brushes, you can buy paintings, you can even buy a little palette. If you can't afford a palette, $2 for a palette. You can use paper plates, okay? So there is so many platforms for you to look at for inspiration. Pinterest has 1 million pictures that you can use for reference. For me, I look up pictures on Pinterest of beautiful women, of beautiful floral arrangements, birds, and I just save those pins and use them for reference. If I feel that I have an artist block, I look at painting videos. I go outside, I take a walk. Sometimes if I start a painting and I don't know where to go with it, I let it rest, I sleep on it, and the next day I wake up with brand new ideas. So there's so many ways to help you to level up your skills. and so many artists who are willing to help. So don't allow these things to hold you back. And don't listen to people. Do what you love. If it's painting portraits, if it's painting animals, landscapes, abstracts, skies, birds, whatever it is that you love to do, stick to that. Don't worry about what's trending or what you think people want to purchase. There's an audience for every type of work, every type of style. You just got to find it. But if you don't put yourself out there, you're not going to find people to buy your artwork. So don't be afraid to let people know that you are an artist, that you are pursuing this career, and that you have art for sale. Okay? And if you're an older person, you can't let old age, disabilities, even handicaps hold you back. You know, I am now 60 years old. The regrets that I have is not having dedicated more time to putting myself out there, to pursuing my art career, okay, by listening to other people. Even though I've been selling art for about 40 years now, I could have done so much more had I not allowed people to hold me back and all of these negative ideas to hold me back. So if you love art, if you've been doing it, or if you're just starting, this is something that you can do, and now is the time to do it. Because you have all the platforms for it, you have all the videos, you have all the support in the world. And a handicap, I have a handicap. I can only see out of one eye. And even the one eye is a bad eye. So, you know, I, of course, must wear glasses, but there's tiny details that I can't really see. I don't allow that to stop me from painting, even if I have to get a magnifying glass and hold it up to the picture so that I can get a better look at what I'm doing. So, you know, think about Frida Kahlo. Frida Kahlo painted on her back. She lay down on her bed, she had the canvas overhead, and she painted overhead. It's never too late. There are people who are in their 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s. There's even a man that I follow on Instagram who's 101 years old, and he is still painting and still selling his pieces. So don't allow anything to hold you back. If this is your passion and this is what you want to pursue, even if you just want to do it for therapy, for yourself, painting is an awesome skill to have. So please, if you like this video, if you have any questions, any requests, I am going to be putting out future videos on my painting process. I'm also going to put out videos on my artwork and why I paint what I paint. What does it mean? If you are older, you have so much life experience, and your life experience, your journeys, your stories can become part of your paintings. I mentioned earlier that I grew up in the 70s and 80s, the hippie era. So a lot of my paintings really reflect that time period with the colorful pieces, the collages, the long hair, even the lacy patterns that you see in my artwork means something. My mother used to make all of our outfits, and she always put lace in our dresses, and I loved the lace. I loved the patterns. I loved all of that. You know, we did a lot of quilting. We made patchwork, you know, pillows and stuff like that, patchwork sweaters. So you see a lot of that reflected in my artwork, and it represents something. So if you're an older artist, your life experiences, your life journeys, you can paint that, incorporate it in your paintings. You have lots to tell, lots to say. So don't ever feel that you are too old, too uninteresting. People want your story. They want to see you. So I hope you like this video. I hope you follow and share. And like I said, I will be putting out future videos on my art process and on my paintings. And if you have any requests, please don't hold back. Thank you for listening for this long, and thank you for tuning in. Again, this is Yvette Andino, and I will see you soon.